Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of my Changing Lives podcast. I am excited today to have Lillian Marty as my guest, and in a few minutes, she'll tell you more about herself and her Substack. For those who don't already know, my name is Wendy Gordon, and the name of my Substack is Changing Lives. I write about mental and spiritual health from my perspective as a former pastor and as a depression survivor, among other things. And my goal is just to share what has helped me to help other people. And speaking of that, I just finished creating today my self-love workbook, and I am making it available free to anyone on Gumroad. And the web link is just bit.ly/mylovebook. And I also created this QR code in case that's helpful to anyone. But I hope that you will check out the book, and I'll put the link, of course, with the recording later. But it's a 15-page workbook that has exercises that are unique, definitely not your standard AI generated or master resell rights over and over, people saying the same things. It's uniquely mine, 100% human created. So I hope you'll check it out and enjoy it. And we'll get right to it. Lillian, introduce yourself and tell us about your work.
Well, I'm Lillian. Thank you for inviting me, and I love being here with you and everybody here. My Substack is Love GPS, and it grew out of my own experience with growing up with emotional neglect. And then that experience of growing up that way led me to get involved with in romantic relationships with emotionally unavailable men. And I did that for many, many, many years. But as an anthropologist, I decided to study what it was all about. What is this emotional thing about? Because at some point when I was in grad school, I decided this is too hard to be emotional. And I put it to the side and I just went with my intellect. And it caught up with me eventually. And so I've been studying love and relationships and all kinds of theories and cultural. My emphasis in anthropology is educational anthropology. So my emphasis on how do you learn things formally and informally. And I apply that to love and relationships.
So I know you just wrote a post about Cupid and Hollywood and all of the ways we unconsciously absorb cultural messages that are not healthy about love. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yes, of course. Love is learned, first of all, at home. But if you don't have an environment at home that is conducive to bonding in love, you are kind of in a disadvantage for the rest of your life. So my idea is, or what I'm trying to have people understand, is that is not forever. If you grew up in an environment of emotional neglect, that affected you. Yes, and we have to accept that and understand it. But that is not going to be like that for the rest of your life. I don't like to use the word you got to work on it because it's not about work. It's about becoming clear. It's about learning about yourself. It's about learning, really. And so you learn about yourself. And the messages we get from society and culture and books and fairy tales and Cupid and all of that, they're just messages. And we got to be able to decipher what's true and what is not true. Because it's told to us like it's true, like all of this is true. And we're confused all the time. So that needs to be something that you look at and change for yourself. Be clear, become clear for yourself.
Yes, and I can personally relate to that. As some of you know, because I've mentioned it in previous episodes, my husband and I will celebrate our 35th wedding anniversary this year. And we are one of those cases where it kind of was love at first sight. We were engaged within a few weeks of meeting each other and have been happily together ever since. And the thing is that both of us had to learn to do things very differently than the way that we were raised, because both of us come from homes where our parents divorced after many years of unhappy marriage. So the communication patterns that we witnessed in our households were not healthy communication styles, to put it mildly. And we didn't see affection being shown between our parents and so forth. And so for us to have a healthy relationship, we had to talk through those things and realize, like, my reaction would be to immediately shut down in an argument and just like not be willing to talk about it at all. Because in my family, my parents fought all the time, and I didn't want to say anything hurtful to my husband in the heat of my anger. Whereas for him, in his family, they shut down and just didn't talk to each other. And so he saw that as very threatening and a sign that our relationship, was falling apart. And so he would want to talk through everything, in the heat of the moment as we were arguing. And so we've kind of negotiated compromises on that, where if I need to say, I can't talk about this right now, we'll talk about it the next day, or we'll a few hours later, we'll set a time when we're both calmer and able to talk through whatever we were arguing about. And in some cases, realize it was a dumb thing that doesn't matter anyway. Um, and most of all, we've had to learn to be very affectionate with each other, to say I love you multiple times a day, when we're leaving, when we're coming home, when we're going to bed at night. Um, but I share that just to say that, you're not doomed, as Lillian said. We are raised with messages, not just in our families, but from the wider culture and Hollywood movies and all the rest, to think that uh, you have no control over love, that you're just, struck by Cupid's arrow, as Lillian wrote in her article. And it's all, this chemical reaction, and certainly, the initial attraction can very much be that. But we all have choices of whether to stay in relationships that aren't serving our emotional needs or that are abusive somehow. And, you wanna elaborate on that, Lillian?
Yes, absolutely. The problem is that we are very confused as human beings about what is it that we're supposed to do with a couple. And if you grow up in a family, and this is not about blame at all, but if you grow up in a family that have a distance of emotional bonding with each other, you will be affected. And it doesn't matter if you all your material needs or financial needs were met or not. And it's not about poverty, but and it can be about a lot of emotional trauma, yes. But even if there was no heavy duty emotional trauma like violence and rape and all of that, it still affects us if there's no emotional bonding with parents and caregivers. And so then we go about our lives, and what do? We get attracted because our bodies like other people. We are human beings and we get attracted. But what happens is that attraction is based on what we know. The brain, now we know that the brain is attracted to familiarity. You feel that someone is familiar to you, feels familiar to you, so you go there. And that feels like fate. It could feel like you're lucky that you found that person. And then after a few months, when the familiarity still there, but you go like, well, but this is not serving me and I don't like it. And you're being abused or you are depressed or the person is addicted to something that you can handle or you don't want to handle, that's when you have to make a decision. But one of the things that happens with the myths and the norms that we learn is one of them is that if it's true love, you got to take it and you got to stay there and you got to accept it for the rest of your life. Like I wrote, it's permanent. These unions are permanent. And I'm not saying that it's a bad idea to stay together with someone. What I'm saying is that you don't have to, that you
I
have a right to move along for
Yes,
what.
I think that's so important, especially for women, because, especially, I can speak as a, Christian or former Christian, that very much women are socialized, to, especially in more conservative churches, to be subservient to their husbands or to any man in authority. And in the worst instances, even if they're being abused, they're taught, oh, you have to forgive, you have to be a better person yourself, and be loving and be giving and be serving all the time. And of course,
Yeah,
that's unhealthy for anyone.
yeah,
And that I don't think that's what God or any other higher power in how they would want us to live. Um,
yeah,
and
yeah,
as you said, we confuse love with either sexual attraction or emotional attraction. As you said, we tend to replicate the patterns that are comfortable and are familiar to us. And so if what we've learned is it's not safe to share our feelings, we seek out emotionally unavailable people. Or if what we learned is, to placate mom or dad, we have to be good all the time and be giving and be sensitive to their moods and always tiptoe around them, then we're likely to get in a relationship where we have to do those same things. Uh,
right. And I have to say that about men, I it's very interesting to me, all the men I have interviewed, because I designed a study and I interviewed a lot of men and a lot of women about this when I was learning about it. And for men in particular, it's very difficult because the social program, at least in this Western society, is you, your feelings, you don't share your feelings, you shut up. Unless you grow up, of course, in an environment with parents and caregivers that are used to allowing you to speak. But you usually what happens, like my husband, he grew up Irish Italian family, and so what happened is that he grew up like from the thinking, not feeling from the neck down. And so one day, we got along very well and all of that. But, we have, as anybody, any two human beings have differences. And so I started to notice his difficulty in talking about feelings. And one of the things I did was I gave him a list of feelings. And he looked at the list and he said, I did not know there were so many. And to me, that was incredible. And so he's grown a lot and learned a lot. And actually, I used that list to talk to men about feelings. And I asked them, how many can you identify that you feel? And most men are like, "Ooh, I don't know. I don't know." And so that is something that we need to work on as society, and also to be understanding in a relationship when we get together with a partner. Instead of blaming or making them feel worse, oh, you don't know anything about feelings, it's kind of educating each other and learning the language of love, because there is a language. There is a way that you have to say, I love you. Many times, like you say, Wendy, multiple times a day, which I do with my husband. But it's something that you have to work on. sorry, I don't like to use that word. It's something that you have to develop and grow into.
Yes, that's definitely been the case for my husband and I as well. I don't think I ever saw him cry once in the first maybe 30 years of our marriage, and now we're at 35 years. It's really only been in the last 5 years that he has felt safer and freer to express his emotions, privately when we're at home because he knows that I'm a safe person. But you're right, our society as a whole, um, doesn't know what to do with people who express strong emotions. Um, and it's easy to be scared by some of them, like anger, or to just be uncomfortable. And so we all, even in the best families, as you said, our parents are only human, so there are going to be times where they're not emotionally attuned to our needs and they're dealing with their own stresses, and so we feel misunderstood or ignored or whatever. Um, but yeah, I would like to share some more about the myths and the fairy tales that culturally that even aside from how we're raised, how the wider society affects our ideas about love.
Yeah. uh, Well, movies and stories that we hear when we are young are a great source of those myths that we believe, like, Little Red Riding Hood, Sleeping Beauty, um, all of those. They're just teaching us how to behave, and women tend to be very portrayed in a very passive way,
Mm,
even though they do eventually get out, but it's very passive and they're beautiful. They're always beautiful, and they always have, like, beautiful eyes and wonderful hair and beautiful bodies, and that's what's sold, and that's what is sold even today in movies. We still go to movies because so and so is the actress in the movie and she has a great body, etc. But those messages are very unconscious. And when we're looking for a mate, we tend to think about those things first. Is that person beautiful? Is she beautiful? Is he beautiful? Is he a manly, like, in those fairy tales? Is he not? If he's a wimp, I don't wanna be with him. I don't wanna be with a wimp. If there's a man who is emotionally attuned and, sensitive, we tend and we come from emotional neglect, we tend to go like, "Oh, that's boring. I don't like that." So we go back and then we miss that opportunity of connecting with someone who could be good for us. But because our brains is not used to it, we just reject it automatically. Familiarity is the key thing here. And we have to learn about that. We have to learn what's familiar and distinguish that from what's good for you in
right.
particular.
Absolutely, yeah. And those movies so much emphasize love as essential, like "You complete me," that message from Jerry Maguire. And true love's first kiss is what makes you into who you really are. And even love literally saving you, think of Snow White or Sleeping Beauty, especially, has to be awakened with a kiss, and that, is life changing. And there were there's something missing from their life until they have that. And
Yeah.
so yeah, we're all taught that no matter what, you have to be in a relationship. And for my work as a pastor and now as a coach, I counseled so many people, especially if they were wrestling with their sexual orientation or gender identity. There's a whole nother level of where society is saying you're not okay, and no, you have to be in a heterosexual relationship to be a good person, even, or to be acceptable to us. And it's just destructive in so many ways.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah, I was watching the other day, or watching for the 5th time or 10th time, the movie The Notebook, because
Yes.
that movie is so interesting to me. It portrays very clearly this woman who feels passionate for this man who is a carpenter and, not as wealthy as the other guy that she is engaged to marry, but she feels nothing for the other guy. She doesn't love him the same way. But she decides to stay with, for with the other guy. At some point in the movie, she decides that, "No, I have to go to this other guy because we're already engaged, and he that's the way to go." And what he says to her, the, carpenter says to her, it's one of the most beautiful monologues I've heard in movies. How he tells her, "Oh, so you're gonna walk back on your feelings? You're gonna walk out on your own self and what you want for life? Why are you doing that?" And she says, "Well, we have problems and we argue." And he says, "Everybody does that, but we will do it because we love each other and we will work it out." And I think that's a very powerful, powerful movie. In contrast to that, there's a movie called The Holiday that is with Julia Cameron. I forget her name.
Julia Roberts?
No, not Julia Roberts. Cameron. I forget her name. Anyway, and Jude Law, and they trade houses from California and England, and the ending of the movie for me, it's kind of like interesting because love conquers all.
Mm.
Somehow, magically, they're gonna work out that one lives in London, one lives in California, and they're gonna end up together somehow because that's love. And yes, it's a great idea. But, how many times can you do that in life? And, it doesn't work like that, really, for many people. And I'm not trying to say it's not possible. It is possible. But I'm just saying, if it doesn't work out, we tend to feel, "Oh, I did something wrong," or "I'm gonna miss my chance at happiness in life because I'm not moving across the world to be with so and so, and then be miserable in the other part of the world." It's something you have to think of. I I think it's about permission, giving yourself permission to do what you think it's good for you instead of what society is telling you that is good for you, or the norms of, or social media is telling you that is good for you. That's not the point. The point is what is good for you. You decide. You are the one who decides for yourself, not everybody else.
Right. And along with that, I would say, so many people get into relationships thinking that they're going to change the other person somehow, that their love is going to, cure the other person's addiction or make them more loving and not abuse them anymore. Or, love is supposedly the answer to every problem, basically. And
Yeah,
that you must have it in order to be happy is kind of the overriding narrative. And there are plenty of single people who are quite happy as single people, are single by choice, and don't feel, like they're missing something by not being in a romantic relationship. Just the same as with having children. My husband and I never had children. And, along the way, there was that societal pressure and constantly being asked, when are you going to start a family? Well, of course, everyone is part of a family. You don't have to have children to be a family. Um,
that's
but it's just another example of the societal pressure, the fairy tale, if you will, is you get married and then you have children, and the merges with the American dream where you have the white picket fence around your house and all of those things. And for those of us who don't have that, or some aspects of that we don't want, we, as you said, we have to give ourselves permission to say, "That's someone else's dream. It's not mine. It's not what I want, and I'm not going to do it just to please other people."
And you're not a failure because
Right.
you're not doing what everybody else is doing. There's this guilt that we feel sometimes when we don't conform with other people's vision or illusions or societal norms. There's this feeling in the background of our heads, and I feel guilty, or I feel bad. I'm not doing it right, or I should be doing better, or I should be doing something different, or I should try harder to meet somebody else's dream or to meet society's standards. And that's not right. And one of the things you said about potential, when we come from emotional neglect, we tend to fall in love with the potential of a person. It's one of the things
Yes.
that we like, the potential of a person. And my personal insight is that when I was growing up with emotional neglect, and I wish that my father and my mother would be different, I spent many, many, many hours thinking, I wish this could be different. I'm trying to figure out how I could make it different. And that stays. That's a chatter that stays in you, I think. But at least it stay with me. And so you grow up and then you go like, oh, that person's potential. Yeah, I know that person has potential. Let me work on it.
Yes.
Instead of working on your own potential, you work on and you give your power to the other person. You become subservient and you become the person who enables the other person to do
Yes.
many things that are not the best things. But you want a drink? Here you go. I'll give you a drink. You don't have money? I'll give you money. You don't have a home? Come move into my apartment. And this goes both ways. It's not only women
Right.
uh, for men do it also for women, which is very something to notice. And men should not should men need to be taken more seriously here, and we need to be more sensitive about men, because I think they're left out of the dialogue here, and that's a disservice that we're doing to us, to all of us as society, when we just feel it's a female problem or a woman problem. It's both, actually.
Yes, definitely. And the men who are the abusers uh, come to that place out of being the wounded child who was abused. Um,
That's right.
and that's, like you said, it's so easy to um, stereotype or criticize other people, and either make them our fixer upper project, or just totally dismiss them as there's no hope for that person, and we condemn them and we judge them, instead of looking at, well, how did they come to believe these things or act this way? Um,
Yeah, yeah, that's really important. And also, I think that along those lines is the blame. I don't think that uh, we have to blame parents or caregivers, because this is a generational issue. It comes down from generation to generation. If your parents and your grandparents did not have the love and the bonding that they did not provide for you, it just goes like that. You can stop it though. If you decide to have children, then you decide to be different with your children, like my brother did with his daughter. But also, if you don't have children, you can be loving to many other people. And we tend to, when we come from emotional neglect, we tend to either isolate or become very angry. Those are two of the things that we do. Or we become, besides that, people pleasers. And we're always like a puppy behind people. So there are many ways that emotional neglect affects people. So Love GPS, it's that's why I developed Love GPS, because it it's a guidance that you need to develop for yourself. How do I guide myself in this emotional system, this program that I have? What do I do now? Become aware of it and then do something about it slowly with a lot of compassion for yourself, and loving yourself first is the main thing.
Absolutely. And I think that's another thing that our society doesn't emphasize enough. We have to love ourselves first. Otherwise, we're going to continue to perpetuate the unhealthy patterns because we think that's all we deserve, or because that's just all that we know. And so it's just normal to us. We don't even know there's a better option out there. Um, and I know that's been true for myself, that when my inner critic is really, strong and putting me down, I tend to also be more critical of my husband or more judgmental towards people out in the world. But when I'm able to stop and say, challenge those assumptions and be kinder to myself, then I'm naturally kinder to other people, and better able to be in a healthy relationship where I'm not either trying to fix them or looking to them to fix me. Both can be equally destructive. And I mentioned earlier, I'll just mention briefly again, I literally today just finished creating a self-love workbook that I am giving for free to anyone who wants it. So this is the QR code, and it's just bit.ly/my love book. So I tried to make it easy to remember. Um, but anybody can go and get that. On Gumroad, it tells you to name your price. So you just type in 0 to get it for free. It's a download PDF. Um, but it has some very simple exercises that help with coming to love yourself. That they're all things that I do personally that have made a big difference in my life in helping me to love myself unconditionally. For decades, I defined my self-worth in terms of my productivity, my achievements, and getting praise and approval from other people. And it wasn't really until I found myself unexpectedly unemployed and ultimately changing careers. But that transition period, I realized I just felt horrible about myself, and I was criticizing myself all the time for being lazy, weak, too sensitive, too picky about jobs, all of these things, because I was used to my self-worth totally coming from my achievements and being told, how helpful I was to someone, how smart I was, whatever. And so it's just so important to learn how to love ourselves. And that's another skill that our society does not teach. Our society tells us our worth comes from our looks, being skinny, being beautiful, um, all of those things, or it comes from how much money we make or what kind of job we have. Um, but none of that is where our true worth comes from. It all comes from inside and who we are and how we treat other people.
Yes, I was thinking when you said that about the journey of loving yourself. If you come from an environment, excuse me, where you are not taught how to bond or love with somebody else, how the hell are you supposed to do that when you grow up? So it's something that you have to, unfortunately, learn somehow. And it's a deliberate act. In my opinion, it's something that you have to do deliberately. It's not magic. It doesn't happen all of a sudden. Maybe for some people, yes, okay, I will give you that. But as you say in your workbook, which I haven't seen, but I hope to see, there's a lot of things that we must do when we are in this process of learning to love ourselves. I myself took, at some point after I had a really, really bad breakup one time, and I had hit bottom so badly that I decided, okay, that's it. And I took myself moved myself into another place and spent 3 months working on myself. I was fortunate enough that I had the resources to do that. So, but it took me 3 months to stop and say, that's enough. I'm going to change this and learn. And that's how I designed my research study for figuring out what is all of this about. What is this love? What is this emotional neglect? Because telling me that I was love addicted or codependent or was not enough for me, that didn't ring for me. Nobody sat me and said, listen, you were emotionally neglected and you have all this mumbo jumbo up there in your head now. And you're trying to conform with social norms at the same time and look pretty and be professionally wonderful and have a great job, and which I did. And then I was dead inside and I was going with the wrong people, with the wrong men. I was involved with the wrong men. Not because they were not good people, but because they were not good for me. They were
Right.
not emotionally in tune with me. So it takes time. And this is not something that you can do from one day to the next. And I would say to everyone to be patient, to be very, very patient with yourself. And if you are in a relationship, you have to be patient with the other person as well. One thing is that once you start, if you're in a relationship, once you start changing, the other person will also change, hopefully for the better. That has happened in my relationship. My husband, if I change, my husband changes for the best, which I love. Um, and so it's not so easy to say, oh, you have all these problems, all these theories that we have out there about codependency and love addiction, and it's not enough for me to say that. It's many things. It's not only those theories. There are many things that happen, in terms of the myths that we learn, the messages that were given to us, how we were brought up. It takes a while to get that organized and out of the system and change a little bit, for you
Yes.
to love yourself, to learn to love yourself.
It's definitely a gradual process, and it's also like any skill, something that you have to keep practicing because our default is back to those, patterns we learned in childhood that are hardwired into our brain that we are only capable of changing if we're aware of them. And the other thing I will say, as someone who had years of therapy and had tons of great insight and could, give you a whole spiel about this is why I do this. This is what happened in my childhood, all the things. Knowing it in your head is not enough. Where science is showing more and more now how we carry those emotions, those unreleased feelings in our bodies. And so it's doing somatic healing work too, energy healing, whatever it might be. Uh, and so that's nothing against therapy. I've certainly benefited from it and I highly recommend it. It's just to say that we need a more holistic approach and
Right.
that it's
Yeah,
an
absolutely.
ongoing daily practice of self care too for me. I still write affirmations every night. And as I say in the self love workbook, I don't write the kind of vague, if you believe it, you can achieve it, or like to me, things that are lies, basically. Um, I write things I actually believe. So even if I'm having a hard day and I'm criticizing myself for something I did or didn't do, I can write, I am honest. I am making progress on, or I am learning to, or I am working on loving myself more. Things like that that I actually believe that are, I write them at night. So it's putting a positive ending to the day, even if it was a hard day. And there's something I did that I'm not proud of, or that I really wanted to get done and I didn't. I can still find ways to affirm the good. And again, if I don't do that, it's kind of funny. I journal in the mornings, and I do tapping too, which I mentioned in this workbook. But if I don't do those things for whatever reason in the morning, I'm running late or I have an early meeting or something, then it affects the rest of my day. My husband can tell the difference in my mood. I can tell the difference in my mood. I'm more irritable. I'm more critical, all of those things. So it's just so important to not just like understand at an intellectual level, okay, I have these issues and this is how these issues developed and this is what I need to do to challenge them in my head. We also need to be releasing that from the body and in being very intentional about installing new wiring or new programming.
Yeah, that's right. The the brain, as you know, the neurons that wired together, that fired together, wired together.
Mhm.
So if the our mind is in the whole body. Our mind and our intellect is not only up here, it's in the whole body because the brain is a nervous system and the emotional system is also in the whole body. It's not only on the right side of the brain, it's in the whole body. And yes, we have one dominant side that it's emotional and intellectual, but there's ways that you feel everything in the whole body. And you cannot, well, a lot of people separate them like I did, but it will catch up to you. Um, and there's many ways that you can do that. Very simple ways. Every morning, like you said, Wendy, like doing affirmations. It's not only doing the affirmation, but also what do you do before the affirmation? You feel something before. And then you write an affirmation that is for your day. And it's not for you to put yourself into a program that you're going to write affirmations every day and do it in 30 days. Like some programs
Right.
are out there that say in 30 days you'll be a different person. Well, I don't know. I haven't been through those programs, but I've been through other programs that have lasted a lot longer, and I'm still working on it. And I still write affirmations, and I still do it myself. And I check on myself in the evening and giving gratitude in particular,
Yes. Mhm.
being grateful for everything that happened during the day that was gave me an opportunity to be alive, like seeing something that is beautiful, or hearing something that is beautiful, or eating something and preparing something that is really nice for you. That's those gratitude is where I go to when I feel the worst. That's the first thing I do. I'm grateful for my hands. I'm grateful for my fingers. I'm grateful for my body. I'm grateful because I can breathe. I'm grateful because I can see, I can hear. It's great being great. Feeling gratitude is important. Um, so it's this programming is just not a 2-week or a 30-day kind of a thing, as you say. It takes a while, and it's consciousness. It's just developing this process that you are checking on yourself every day, every moment even, um, until you get used to it, because that programming is there. Um, and it's something you have to learn to unprogram, and you're not doomed for the rest of your life. That's the most important thing. You're not doomed, and you don't have to blame anybody for it either. The people who were around you while you were growing up, they had their own issues.
Mhm.
And I was going to recommend a book that is called The Other Great Depression by this comedian Richard Lewis, who died a few years ago. He wrote a really great book about his process of getting over alcohol addiction. But the beautiful thing about his book is that he talks about it in a very human way and funny way, and he explains exactly what happens when you suffer emotional neglect in your family. Wonderful parents had all his material needs met, but none of his emotional needs. And he always felt like an outsider. And it was hard for him, to the point that he grew up learning not to feel as a man. So to feel, he drank. And we
Interesting.
used
Yeah.
all these other things to feel something or not to feel something.
Yes. I was going to say, most of the
Both
people I
things.
know who drink, they drink to not feel, to escape, to kind of become a different person who doesn't have their issues or their social inhibitions, who can just do anything and not even remember it. So, escape totally. But yeah,
Yeah.
the other thing I wanted to touch on briefly, because we've talked about the role of the wider culture and Hollywood movies and fairy tales. One thing we haven't talked about are commercials. And I've been really appalled, and I've been more aware lately. There's a commercial for what has become a weight loss drug that's very popular. And it says, it's all these different people who are happy doing various things saying, I'm entering my Ozempic era, as if, taking that drug and losing that weight is what makes it possible to live a good and happy life. If you think of like Valentine's Day commercials, or that there's one for the jewelry store, every kiss begins with K. So over and over, we get these messages that the way to show love is to buy someone something expensive. And if we want to escape our feelings now, all we have to do is pick up our phone and scroll through social media, or go on the internet, or binge watch a TV series. And again, in moderation, any of those things can be fun and perfectly fine. We all need escape sometimes. But if they're our default go tos all the time, and we never process our emotional reactions, and we never come to accept our bodies as they are, and accept that, yes, as we get older, we're going to get some wrinkles, and we're going to potentially have other issues that we don't like, but yet we can still love our bodies just the way they are and nourish them in genuine ways, instead of, I'm going to make myself feel better by doing something that's actually destructive.
Yeah, this commercials, it's a something big that I follow actually quite a bit, and I analyze quite a lot, because we're sitting there watching TV, and suddenly you have this person shoving potato chips into your lap, and or beers, or vodka, or expensive jewelry. And if you don't do any of those things, you have to wonder, many people wonder, what's wrong with me? I'm not with it. I'm not doing that. And then the people who do it end up not in good places. And they also then wonder, but I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do, that society is telling me to do. And I'm in a really bad place. What is that about? So trusting your feelings is the first thing. And that's something you learn slowly. You have to learn that very slowly, but don't get I don't want to preach or tell people what to do, but it's very important to be aware and to be clear.
Hmm.
Become clear about what is out there, what is the message that commercial TV is giving you, what is the message that a movie is giving you, and not be so naive as to say, okay, so that's what I have to do, or that's the norm, and I should do that. That's not true.
And
Um,
even I would add, a therapist or a coach or a spiritual leader, I wouldn't rely on them to tell you what to do either. Ultimately, they can be helpful guides, but I always emphasize, when I'm coaching anyone, I'm not the expert on your life. You are. I can share tips based on what has helped me, and some of them may help you a great deal. Some of them may not work for you at all. And that doesn't mean that you failed or that I'm wrong. It's just, we're two different people, and different things work better than others for different people. But unfortunately, we're in a society where we are conditioned to want a quick fix. We want the pill to lose weight. We don't want to have to diet or exercise too much, or we
Or
want
eat
the 6-week
adequately.
course to make us rich, right?
Yeah.
Earn 6 figures online if you just pay me this money to take my course and you do exactly every single thing I did and that I will teach you to do. Then you can have whatever it is you want. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the reality, I think it's dangerous for anyone, even if they're very well intentioned as a therapist or a coach, to put the message out there that I'm the answer to your problems. I know what you need better than you know yourself.
No, that's never true. And so also the thing is that we live in society. We are That's part of being human. We want to live in society. That's part of our command as a human being when we are born. However, so much has happened in the development of the world. I started talking about Cupid in my article because that was when people did not know what desire was or what other emotions were, and they created gods. That's what they did. And so now we know better. We know that Cupid is not a god. We know that what desire is. We know what dopamine is now. We know how the brain works. Before we didn't. So there's a discernment that needs to happen from the old stories and what's reality today. And we are so fortunate that we have this new developments in technology that we can know more about things. But I don't think the answers are all there yet, and there is not one answer for anyone. So it's your discernment is very important, and two people can come from the same place like me and my brother and have totally different lives. And that is okay.
Mm.
That is totally okay. Sorry, I got a message there.
Yeah, as we've been talking about, our culture tries to, from the time we're young children in school, the message we get is you have to conform. There is one way to behave that's acceptable. These are the answers that you need to know, and they're the only possible right answers on the test, um, et cetera, et cetera. Then we grow up, and our employers, bosses tell us what to do, and if we don't do what they say, when they say, and how they tell us to do it, we can lose our job, or someone else that's willing to work longer hours could get the promotion. In so many ways, we are conditioned to just blindly do what we're told, or do what everyone else is doing. And
Yeah.
unless we break that, we're never going to even have the chance at true happiness, because we're trying to force ourselves into a box that doesn't work for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, society has many good things and cultures have many good things, but they also have many negative things. And this conforming because we need norms of behavior and rules of behavior in order to have social order. Otherwise, we would have chaos.
Right.
But the powers that be, they have taken advantage of that and are demanding things from us that are not right, that are not correct. And they continuously tell us that this is the way, that their way is the way, the pill is the way, the alcohol is the way, the cigarette is the way, the clothing that you wear is the way. And that's not really true. And now with social media, um, it's even more difficult because it works on our brains in a different way. They know how dopamine works. It's
Yes.
the neurotransmitter for novelty. And with our phones, we're continuously seeking novelty. We want that. We crave that. Who said what and what's going on Facebook or whatever app you have. And also dating apps. Dating apps it's a really difficult world to get into. Uh, Fortunately, to be on the positive side, many people are getting, you know, very savvy about how to deal with those dating apps, and they don't go full in blindly. So that's an advancement, and I hope that that continues to happen for everyone's benefit. But it's very difficult right now not to be triggered chemically, our brains, with the neurotransmitters, because everything is designed for that purpose. Everything
Yes.
to hook us in.
Absolutely, and you add to that the rise of, um, AI bots and, other, like, not even human interaction that leads us to believe we're interacting with a real human and stokes our outrage and gets us to have this back and forth argument that keeps us on that platform that much longer, seeing those ads, and as you said, it's all engineered and deliberately manipulative, but we continue to fall for it. And, we talk about, oh, I'm going to do a social media detox. So for 24 hours or whatever, we stay off of our phones. And I always think, well, if this is something you need to detox from, why would you want to keep doing it and bring it back? That
Good
detox is like
point.
what you do when you're coming off of a drug that you know is bad for you, right?
Good point. Yep, yep. No, and also I personally, we have had trouble communicating with each other because I don't have my phone on at all during the day. I don't use my phone. I maybe look at it at night a couple of times, and that's it. And I look at email once, like maybe around 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and that's it. Because I know what it does to the brain, and it's very distracting as
Mhm.
well. And it keeps us unhinged. It keeps us like at this expectation kind of thing and distracted. So that's what I do. I don't recommend people to do anything in particular, but that's what I do.
Yeah, for me, keeping my phone in do not disturb mode, most of the day, most days actually, has just been essential to my mental health. And when I go and walk in the park, which is another essential thing for my mental health, enjoying time in nature, I definitely have my phone on do not disturb. The only reason I take it out is to take photos or videos of the beautiful sunset or the animal or whatever. Um, but it has just been essential. And the other thing I've noticed is how much our news has changed. I remember in my younger days when news coverage was, um, at least had the appearance of being impartial, and it was said in a neutral tone, and the facts of what had happened were reported. The event was covered. Um, but it wasn't like it is now, where there was all this opinion commentary added to it that again stokes the outrage or gets people to go, yeah, you tell them, and share with their friends on social media, and we get in these little bubbles of people who think exactly like we do, and we condemn the other side instead of actually having human interactions and rediscovering the shared humanity underneath all of that and finding ways to live together in healthy relationships.
Yes, that is great. That's wonderful that you said that. Also, I like to remind myself all the time that I have a landscape within me. I have a place also within me, that it's beautiful. My life is beautiful. My body is beautiful. My emotions are beautiful. Our bodies are miracles. It's my opinion. My bodies are miracles. You can see, you can taste, you have blood going through your veins. That's incredible. So to instead of like being so focused out there, it's focusing on in here. Love inside. If you love yourself, also you can love other
Right.
people because you know what it is. When you love yourself, you know what love is, and then you can feel it for other people. If you don't know what love is, that's a good way of knowing how someone doesn't love themselves is the way they treat other people.
Absolutely.
They
Yeah,
don't
like
treat
we
other
talked about
people.
earlier,
Yeah.
self-love it has to come first. It's not selfish. It's not about, ignoring the world's needs or putting our heads in the sand. It's about realizing that we can't bring love into the world or be a positive force for change if we're emotionally reactive and we haven't dealt with our own issues. And so we just respond to hate with more hate or calls for violence or whatever it might be. It all has to start with love. And that's not, this kind of feel good, everything is okay, love, let's
Mhm.
pretend to get along. It's acknowledging reality and holding people accountable in love.
That's right. Yeah, and as I said before, we live in society, and there's only one way we can survive is by caring for each
Yes,
other. That love that we feel for ourselves, we can show it and share it with other people.
absolutely.
Otherwise, our road is very difficult
Yes.
as it is right now.
Yes. Well,
This
it is
country.
3 o'clock now. These lives always fly by. I feel like we could talk for hours more. But thank you, Lillian. And I'm just going to close by reminding anyone who would like my free self love workbook. Just go to bit.ly/mylovebook. Or if you're able to scan this QR code with your phone this quickly, more power to you. I will also put the link when I post the recording of this live. But thank you so much to everyone who joined us. And thank you so much, Lillian. It was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy, for doing this. You are so wonderful, Wendy. Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.